Mailbag time here on NBA Now by Chat Sports. I'm Harrison Graham, Chase Sr. along with me as well. Hashtag NBA or Super Chat. Get your questions on the show. We'll answer as many as we can. John is first up here. Talk about the 76ers. Does Daryl Morey improve this team? Remember, $5 Super Chat. We'll talk about your team. We'll obviously answer the question as well. You're a Sixers fan, Chase, so
Yes.
Where does this team sit right now?
So I'm from the Philly area, and it's been amazing what the Sixers have done this year. Joel Embiid, before he got hurt, was going to be the MVP in my opinion. He was unbelievable, playing just ridiculous basketball for a center at this point in terms of where the NBA is now with its style of play. He's going to come back. He's going to be okay. I think what the Sixers should do, they should be all in on Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
And if it means that you have to give up Tyrese Maxey and Danny Green, possibly Matisse Thybulle in a future pick, you have to, if you're Daryl Morey, sit down and really think about possibly pulling the trigger on that deal. Because what the Sixers didn't do, Harrison, they elected not to put that package together for a guy like James Harden.
Yeah.
And look at what Harden has done with the Nets. He has kept that team afloat, and the Nets are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. Harden's been playing like an MVP, so if I'm the Sixers, I go after Lowry.
Stoney814 with another $5 super. Anything about the Miami Heat or who they are interested in? Big Heat fan here. Appreciate the super. We'll talk about the Heat real quickly here as well. Remember, $5 supers. We'll talk about whatever team you want us to. This is clearly a buyer team. They're in on Lowry as well. It's them or Philadelphia right now. The Lakers, according to Woj, could be in the mix, but could be similar to the Sixers and the Nets for Harden. Which team offers more for Kyle Lowry?
Yeah, and those close to Lowry say that he'd prefer, even though he's from Philadelphia, going to Miami because him and Jimmy Butler are boys. And think about that. Those are two of the biggest alpha dogs in the entire NBA. That'd be a really fun backcourt. The problem is if you're Miami, you're probably going to have to part with Precious Achiuwa.
Or Tyler
right?
Hero.
And or Tyler Hero and or Duncan Robinson. It's going to be a big package.
Jamie, appreciate you guys super chatting. Assuming the Pelicans sell at the deadline, what would it take to get Adams for the Mavs? So we'll talk about the Mavs angle here. Steven Adams here, the player Jamie's talking about. I don't view this as a very likely option. I'll be brief on the Mavs. I've got them in the buy low or stand pat category. We already heard their GM, Donnie Nelson, hop on local radio in Dallas, said don't get your hopes up on a big splash. They like their young core. And I think more realistically, Chase, they don't have a first-round pick they can trade until 2025 due to the Kristaps Porzingis deal. So unless they're going to part with a Jalen Brunson, who's been great this year, there's not a lot they can really do.
Yet, if you're the Dallas Mavericks and a fan of that team, do not let the 22-19 record fool you.
They've been hot as of late.
They got off to a slow start. Luka Doncic was not in good shape because I think he expected the NBA season to start later than it did.
The COVID thing hit them hard.
The COVID thing hit them hard as well. Prior to the All-Star break, they went on a tear, winning 8-9 in a row, right? And they've won in their last 10 games 7 out of 10.
Yep.
So this is a really good team that's starting to round into form.
Name a player that will get traded at the deadline. Remember, we're counting down here. We're getting close to Thursday's trade deadline here. Let us know. Name a player you guys think will get dealt before or at the deadline. The Teague, $10. We'll spin the roulette wheel shortly. Who should the Mavs add to get a title this year? Trade or buyout? I think buyout market's more likely. They're not going to get. I think they like Drummond. I don't think they'll get him, though, if it becomes the buyout. You give more thoughts while I spin the wheel here.
Natik, let me give you a name. J.J. Redick of the New Orleans Pelicans, one of the best shooters that could hit the buyout market. Now, he'd prefer to stay on the East Coast because he's from, or lives in Brooklyn, rather. But the Dallas Mavericks desperately need a shooter. That Seth Curry contract has really hindered them offensively. They could use a sharpshooter from beyond the arc. J.J. Redick could be the perfect and affordable fit for the current construction of that roster and for what the team needs.
I spun the wheel. I'm being told Marshall has to chug a beer. If you're watching live, stay tuned. We will do it after this mailbag, so stay tuned for that. Marshall, if you're back there, you're going to have to chug a beer in the next few minutes. Brandon Singleton, the Mavericks moves at the trade deadline. Who can maximize Luka Doncic's ability now and in the long run? A lot of Mavs stuff. they can't. Here's the thing: you can't overthink this deadline if you're Dallas because it's not just about this year.
Exactly right. You have to continue to build around Luka Doncic, and you can't hinder yourself financially moving forward. Rick Carlisle said yesterday he doesn't expect the Mavericks to make any moves. You talk about Donnie Nelson saying the same. I think that's the tune to monitor, to follow with the Mavericks. I think they're pretty content with where they're at right now.
Yep. Ken Hayer with another super. Lauri Markkanen 2 seconds for Lonzo. Bulls convince Zoe for an $18 million extension and have their point guard of the future. Pels try Lauri next to Zion. Don't hate it. There's been chatter around both these guys. Lonzo to the Bulls has been circulating, and there's kind of been these telling signs that the Bulls, while they like Markkanen, do they like him enough to pay him long term? That's the question.
Yeah, the thing about the new playoff format where 10 teams are in the running for a playoff spot, the Bulls, even though they're under 500, they're in the thick of the things in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. They've been linked to Lonzo Ball. Now, Ken, I like Lonzo going there, even though you do have Kobe White, who I actually like, and I think he's going to be a pretty solid player.
Maybe he's like a super bench, energy guy.
Potentially, an energetic spark plug off the bench. I think that package right there may be a little bit too hefty for Lonzo Ball unless you extend him.
Yo, Squiggly, appreciate the $2 super MVP, Harrison. What makes the Mavs a legit contender? I think you look at this offseason. I think you look at adding a third piece this offseason. Hardaway's off the books at that point.
That's huge.
If you try and get a big third piece, if not, maybe you bring him back. I think a healthy KP for extended amount of times makes a huge difference as well. Which who knows if that'll ever happen. Rogue Brothers, if the Clippers offer 2 seconds for Jeff Teague, do you think Ainge says no? No, I think he says yes. Jeff Teague has not done much this year. Perimeter defensive playmaking, 3-point specialist point guard. Let's be clear, he's improved as a shooter. I would not call Jeff Teague a 3-point specialist by any means. Early in his career, he couldn't shoot the 3 at all. I know he's shooting better this year. Producer Sam, 44%. It's low volume. He's actually been worked out of the Celtics rotation at times this year. 2 seconds, I think the Celtics are like, yeah, you can have him. Like he's a 10-minute a game guy at this point.
That's a highway robbery. If Danny Ainge were to get that package, I think he'd be cheering in the front office. Jeff Teague at this point, he's 32 years old. He's well past his prime.
He's fine.
Not the player that he once was with the Atlanta Hawks. He's averaging 6.5 points per game this year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So we'll see what the Celtics do. They are a team to monitor, Chase. We spent a couple of extra moments on them here. I do think they should be buyers, but selling Jeff Teague really doesn't do much for anyone at this point. Subscribe to Chat Sports. Let's hit 237,000 subscribers. We're less than 400 away, thanks to your guys as we're watching this live. Of course, if you're watching on Wednesday morning, then hey, maybe we've already hit 237K. Hit the big red button and subscribe and join us for our NBA trade deadline coverage on Wednesday afternoon. Help us out. We're closing in on 237K. Colin Reed will go quickly here. The Thunder have 35 picks through 27. Do you think they get to 40 picks before the deadline is over? Don't count out Sam Presti.
With Sam Presti, you never know. He has stockpiled picks like a madman, and it is totally in the realm of possibility that he adds more picks, although I think what Sam Presti wants to do, there's some talented pieces on the roster. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a great building block. He's been a pleasant surprise since getting drafted.
Dort. He's a decent little
Lou
piece.
Dort, solid player who was really impressive last year in the playoffs as well. I think Sam Presti, rather than add picks, maybe trades them away for future players.
Also, could you trade Horford, even if that means giving up one of those picks to get out of that contract?
Yeah.
Could be a possibility. Natiko 5, LiAngelo Ball's future thoughts. He has no future, and no, he would not get on the court with the Mavericks. He's trash. He's good at stealing Gucci glasses, though, so there you
go.
Steve Peterson, Timberwolves trade ideas. Rosa has to be up to something. I actually read a report right before we went live, if you're watching still live with us, Steve. The Timberwolves are not going to trade Anthony Edwards. They're not going to trade D'Angelo Russell, and they're not going to trade Karl Anthony Towns for good reason. One, Edwards is starting to ball out, and two, D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, I read this earlier, not only have they only played in 5 games together, 112 total minutes on court together.
It's
You
crazy.
owe it to yourself to see if this can turn into something if you are Minnesota.
If you're a Timberwolves fan, everything that Harrison just said, it probably makes you sick. I'm going to throw some positivity your way. Anthony Edwards the other night, he dropped 40 points.
It's looking like the truth. Man.
So if that core can come together, and if the Timberwolves, who have the worst record in the NBA right now at 10-33, they've been abysmal this year. If their pick lands inside the top 3, it doesn't go to Golden State. And can you imagine the Timberwolves' current core adding Cade Cunningham or Jalen Suggs, possibly Jalen Green
they get
from
the number
the
one
G
pick,
League?
it's a game changer.
Wow, that franchise and the fortunes of it could turn around very quickly.
Shout out your favorite team in the comments section. We always love to know who you guys are rooting for. It helps us kind of figure out what our audience is. So help us out. Shout out your favorite team. You can type it more than once. We want to know who you are rooting on this season. David A., appreciate the $2. Aaron Gordon to Portland. Don't think Portland, but I do think he gets traded.
I do think, though, that if Aaron Gordon were to go to Portland, it makes the Trailblazers really interesting in a wide-open Western Conference, given the injuries that have happened to the Lakers, given the fact that we know the Clippers, they are prone to postseason collapses. So Aaron Gordon to the Trailblazers, that's actually a trade that I'm fascinated by. I'm keeping an eye out on that one because I think if Aaron Gordon goes to a playoff contender, you will see him get re-energized and you will see him start to live up and fulfill his potential.
And what has been Portland's issue in recent years?
It's depth.
They lack athleticism.
Yes.
As great as Dame and CJ are, they're not athletic.
Yeah.
They're great players. They're not good athletes though. And defense. And Gordon's not the best defender, but he gives you a little more credibility there, and he's a freak athlete. So I think that would definitely be interesting. Gwendolyn, appreciate the $2. Will Leonard, is he going to be traded away? Well, he was part of that Ariza trade.
Yes, he was.
And the Thunder have already said he's not going to be a part of their organization. Look, I don't know what's going to play out with Leonard. Don't be shocked if we never see him in the NBA again, or at least for a while.
It's a possibility. The reason he was expendable, he only signed a 1-year contract prior to this year with Miami. Here's a note and a message to everybody out there. If you're on Twitch playing video games and the public can watch you, don't say anything stupid.
Hey,
how about that? Pretty easy in 2021.
It's not that difficult. Good job, Myers. Ratchet, #NBA, Bogdan to the Warriors. If not, then who?
Bogdan Bogdanović has been linked to the Golden State Warriors. He's been linked to the Boston Celtics. He's under contract for the next couple of seasons because he signed a pretty large contract prior to this year with the Atlanta Hawks.
They overpaid. He's been injured at times this year. He's only averaging 9.5 points, but last year when he was upright and healthy, he was averaging around 15 per. So he can be a sharpshooter. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So curious to see what the Warriors do. Curious to see if the Hawks trade Bogdanović. Evan Hughes, what players could the Nets get? Buyout market team, maybe they've thrown Dinwiddie out there.
Yeah.
Will a team take him, considering he's injured right now, recovering from that partial tear in his ACL? Look, what more do the Nets need? Honestly.
Yeah, they might have panicked a little bit by signing Blake Griffin because if they didn't sign him, maybe they could have more realistically landed a guy like Andre Drummond. But how about Norman Powell? The Nets are interested in Norman Powell. So if the Raptors do sell, that's a name, possibly.
Man, that would be a huge get for Brooklyn. King of the East, who do the Sixers trade for Kyle Lowry? If they trade him, I think it's got to be Maxey, Thibault, and Danny Green to match salary, and maybe a pick as well.
Yeah, I think that's the package right there. Danny Green probably has to be included.
He has to be involved.
To make
Lowry
the
makes
salary
$30
work.
million.
Yeah.
Green is 16 million.
Yeah.
That eats up half of it there, so he's got to be involved to make salary work. Elias Gifto Aldridge to Miami. Buyout candidate, sure. Not in a trade, though. X Savage, could the Lakers get LA and AD? Could, and honestly, it's not the worst idea because their front court is pretty thin. Logically, though, probably pick one, which would probably be Andre Drummond.
Yeah, Andre Drummond over LaMarcus Aldridge 7 days out of 7.
Especially
the
for the
thing
Lakers.
is, with Drummond, say they bring him in and they want to sign him to an extension, somehow they're going to have to clear salary cap space. So that means potentially getting rid of guys like Montrezl Harrell and KCP.
Gary Sanderson, could you see Sekou Doumbouya getting traded? Young piece for the Pistons. cheap contract. If I'm Detroit, I'm trading any player over the age of 28. Wayne Ellington. We'll see if they trade Jeremy Grant. That's kind of quieted down recently. I actually think he likes it in Detroit and would like to be part of the solution there. Wayne Ellington's the name to watch when it comes to Detroit. Turd Boy, Chat Sports. What can the Spurs get for DeMar DeRozan? Can they get him first? He's been good this year, but I don't know. Tough contract.
Say a contending team that's going to pick in the mid to late 20s wants a little bit of a spark, like DeMar DeRozan. Maybe they offer a first-round pick, but that'd be tough.
Would the Knicks do it? Like, could the Knicks trade one of those Porzingis picks?
The Knicks love star power.
It's kind of interesting, and that's a guy they could actually get.
They need a creator, too.
Yeah.
So that's actually kind of interesting.
I don't mind that idea. I'll be curious to see what happens with DeMar. Ezra, who do the Mavs need before the deadline? A lot of Mavs questions here. Look, I think they're a buy low, buyout market scour type of team. Their roster's pretty set, and they don't have a lot of flexibility. So take a look at guys that don't get traded but could get bought out.
Yeah.
Oroman, how do you think KCP and Montrezl Harrell trade for Malik Monk, Terry Rozier, and Bismack Biyombo is good for the Lakers? Monk's been thrown out there. The problem is, if you're Charlotte and you're still trying to make the playoffs this year, now that you've lost LaMelo Ball, I don't know if you can let Rozier go if you're trying to make it this year. I think him and Devontae Graham are your two guys now.
Yeah, and Malik Monk, too, because he's having a career year back a couple weeks ago, and still now. He was shooting like 44% from three, so I think the play for Charlotte, keep that core together.
Cade to Toronto. Look, Toronto keeps losing. If they sell and kind of tank here, it's possible. And
the player development factor.
That could be a quick rebuild if you get Cade Cunningham because you got Anunoby. Maybe you keep Norman Powell. Maybe Siakam takes another step there. So, yeah, I would love to see that happen. Got a $10 super chat. We will spin the wheel shortly. Even though Nelson and Cuban say not to expect anything, what about the reports this week to the Hawks for Collins? Report about deal around Maxey. I've seen that around there. The Mavs either informally made an offer or told the Hawks, hey, we're interested in Collins. Maxey Kleba could be the centerpiece of that trade. Number one, I think now that the Hawks are winning, that changes how they view things for them. And now Collins has said he wants to stay. That's a new thing from him. That was not true a month ago.
No.
There was beef with him and Trae Young earlier this year.
Yep.
Winning cures everything, folks, and they have started to win in Atlanta. And I will say this about the Mavs. They're the kings of there's no chatter around them, and then boom, they make a move. But I don't see an avenue to see how it happens this time. If they make a move, I think it's a minor one before the trade deadline. Steve Peterson, a couple more here. We'll spin the wheel, by the way. Stay tuned for that. T-Wolves trade for Drummond, send Rubio and Jarrett Culver to the Cavs. First of all, that's too much because you don't have to trade for Drummond. Rubio teaches young guys for Cavs. Drummond plays 5. Karl Anthony Towns 4. Defense finally. Thoughts? How about signing Drummond in free agency next year? If you're serious about getting him, you may have to overpay, but Drummond's been known for, hey, I'm a bag man. Like, he'll take top dollar for whatever is out there. So, yeah, I don't think trading for Drummond makes any sense if you're Minnesota.